From the WATE.com Digital Center, answering your legal questions, this is Ask Isaacs. Now, here's Lori Tucker and attorney Greg Isaacs.
Hey everyone. Yes, we're with you today. This is live stream.
Take two.
Yes.
Yes.
Lori Tucker here along with our legal analyst, Greg Isaacs. And a lot of you, let us know what you want us to talk about. Everybody's talking about Joey Aguilar. A judge made a decision back on February 20th, and people are asking, okay, what's going to happen next legally? So let's bring you back up to speed. UT quarterback Joey Aguilar lost his lawsuit against the NCAA when the judge, Greg, denied his request for a preliminary injunction to extend his eligibility. So let's talk about what went into that ruling.
Well, there was a lot of excitement at Rocky Top because what Judge Haggerty did was he granted a TRO. So he had found there was sufficient evidence for a temporary restraining order, that there was a likelihood of success on the merits, but set it for a hearing, which is a mini trial, to see whether, in fact, he was entitled to a permanent restraining order or permanent injunction against the NCAA. And the world watched, and unfortunately, Judge Haggerty, who was a Tennessee alum in both undergrad and law school, as ESPN has pointed out time after time after time.
They made that connection a lot.
Yes, trying to make it hard for Judge Haggerty to have dinner here in Knoxville for the next few weeks. But anyhow, in a very well thought out opinion, and these are really complicated issues when you look at them. From the view from Google Earth, it doesn't seem that complex. It's like if Pavio can do it for Vanderbilt, why can't everybody extend
but
their
emotions
JUCO time?
Emotions get in the way. People are pulling for Joey. He's got a great story. But here's the deal. After 7 years in college football, and that includes JUCO, the 24-year-old wanted to play this fall. He said, please let me come back. His main argument, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, was that his 2 seasons at Diablo Valley Community College should not count. But the court said, wait a minute, they count.
They count.
7 years. And let's talk about NCAA rules.
Right, and so let's talk about, one of the marquee cases was the Pavio case in Vanderbilt, where they filed a lawsuit in federal court, and they relied upon the Sherman Antitrust Act. So that was a federal legal issue.
And explain that for those who don't know.
And that just means that you can't have an illegal restraint on trade. And if the rules and regulations are anti-competitive and they impact interstate commerce, then it violates the Sherman Antitrust Act. And they basically ruled, they being a number of federal judges, that the way the NCAA applied the rules to Pavio created a violation of that act.
So why were things different for Joey?
Right, and there are basically 3 reasons. One, Judge Haggerty, as most chancellors who have heard these cases, and let's preface it by this, because this is, if you're listening, this is really the 800-pound gorilla that was in the courtroom. In Pavio, you had the Interstate Commerce Clause. In this one, it was an intrastate. So it's not the Sherman Antitrust Act. It was the Tennessee anti-competitive state regulation.
So the judge said letting Aguilar play would be impacting interstate commerce.
He said it would, and they argued that the attorneys for Aguilar said this is a state issue. He's going to have immediate harm here in the state of Tennessee. And Chancellor Haggerty said not so fast. He said that even though Joey argued that only Tennessee law is affected, the judge ruled, which is very commonsensical, that letting him play would impact interstate commerce. So there's not to get overly, to coin a phrase, law schoolish, but Judge Haggerty ruled that it improperly impacted the Dormant Commerce Clause. And that means a state can regulate commerce within their state, but they can't do it in a way that kind of steps on the federal regulations. And Judge Haggerty said basically that letting him play would clearly impact interstate commerce because it involves teams, travel. economic activity
Right.
outside of state lines.
And we're talking $1 billion industry.
Right. So it makes sense if Tennessee was just going to play Vanderbilt, like the Globetrotters play the same team over and over. But once you go to South Carolina isn't bound by the Tennessee Act. Alabama is not bound by the Tennessee statute. So really a well-reasoned. The other thing, two other points that Judge Haggerty ruled on. One, he said this isn't a business restraint. This is just a eligibility standard set by Voluntary Sports Association, i.e. the NCAA.
Well, the NCAA usually allows athletes to compete for 4 seasons within a 5-year period,
Yeah.
right?
And then this is kind of a misnomer to me. He said that it's not a rule controlling a commercial marketplace. Now, other judges have ruled the opposite on that prong.
And you can see that argument.
You can see that argument. But the other thing that Chancellor Haggerty hung his hat on, he said that there was not a showing of harm to a larger economic market. It was just Aguilar. So this isn't irreparable harm to every JUCO player, et cetera. This was just impacting
Just
him.
harm to him
Yeah.
and his future,
And there was no
perhaps.
showing that the NCAA in this particular instance harmed competition across collegiate athletics as a whole.
Okay, so let me go back to my original question. He lost. Why have others won in similar situations?
Well, the past few days has been very interesting, and it's been good for the NCAA. There were 3 cases that hit all at the same time. Everybody was watching. Aguilar. Then you had Badeko.
Right.
That's the Alabama basketball player that went to the NBA, and then 3 years later said, I think I'd rather go back to class.
Isn't that crazy?
It's insane. And so he goes back to Alabama, and then there was a temporary restraining order.
Is he
played
30
for a little
now?
bit.
No.
Yes.
I'm kidding.
With gray hair and whatever, comes back on the court with these 18-year-old kids.
Right.
And the court said, not so fast. We don't think that's gonna fly. But the third case that was interesting that grabbed national headlines was the Ole Miss case with Trinidad Chambliss. And in that case, the court found that he was entitled to another year of eligibility. And the reason that Chambliss
why him?
prevailed and not Aguilar, in his case it was different. He argued the fact that he had a medical red shirt year when he was in JUCO, that shouldn't have counted when he went to D1 and played. He should have not be penalized for taking a red shirt year.
Okay.
So
and that didn't count. He didn't play 7 years like Aguilar
right.
did.
So that makes a little more sense. But in the cases where athletes have prevailed, typically the judges view college athletics as a labor market, and they hold that without giving deference to JUCO and their eligibility, it would harm the sport, and it would harm the economics surrounding the sport.
As they put it, it could distort how athletes choose schools and compete for roster spots, right?
And the other thing that they're focusing on is, and that's the wild, wild west we call NIL that's still emerging, is college athletics is a billion with a B
Correct.
dollar industry. And it's clearly an impact on trade. There are media contracts involved. So, but the other thing is there have been cases where the NCAA are not applying their own rules, or not applying their rules fairly. And what the cases that you don't read about, sometimes when the NCAA gets caught, schools, before they go to court, will ask for a waiver. And so often when litigation begins, suddenly a waiver will be granted.
We've heard
which
about that
renders everything
in different
moot.
cases.
Yeah.
All right.
So those are the big picture issues. But really an interesting few days. Aguilar and Badeko lost. Trinidad Chambliss won. But still, the NCAA, NIL is still broken.
Let's hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break. And I know a lot of you watching will have questions. So we would like for you to fill out the comments that you see right there. We'd love to hear from you. Here's your chance to ask our legal analyst some questions about this topic. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. We're talking about, a big disappointment for Vol fans who were looking forward to the chance that Joey Aguilar, the quarterback for the Vols, could come back this season in the fall, but that's not going to happen. We're going to have to find a new quarterback. But in the meantime, does Joey have any legal recourse? Is there a chance, a slim chance, that perhaps he could come back, or are we done?
Well, Joey would have to appeal the decision of the Knox County Chancery Court to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit. He has 30 days from the entry of the final judgment to do so. If he does it, it's possible a decision can be made by the end of the year. But candidly, his chances on appeal are low. The Sixth Circuit has been historically reluctant to expand athletes and anti-competitive issues outside the compensation part of like NIL.
I always tell you I don't want to put you on the spot, but I end up putting you on the spot. If you were his attorney, would you advise him, hey, just you're done, stop? There's really no legal recourse that would make sense right now?
I think in looking at other cases that have relied on intrastate statutes, they typically, even if you prevail, have been overturned on appeal. So, I think unfortunately, this may be the end of the road for Joey. But Joey had a great career. He's going to have a great future. But
great future. Do you think he could go pro?
24, possibly. Anything is possible. He had a record-setting year.
Fun to watch.
Fun to watch. But what this has shown in the debate, and it was interesting. All those three cases, when you have Aguilar, you have Badeko, a pro basketball player that came back. You have Trinidad Chambliss, who had a redshirt season that wasn't counting in JUCO. It shows that the NCAA, the NIL, is still the wild, wild west.
And that's the thing about NIL. That's how this figures into all of this. The sky's the limit at this point.
The sky's the limit. And I think what it has shown is that at some point, we're going to have to, the royal we, decide
the universal us.
What the rules are so players and universities can make some decisions. But, what you're seeing that I think is going to be the next, let's talk about things that I think you're going to see after these
Are you talking
cases.
Future litigation?
Future litigation.
In similar cases?
In similar cases. I think what we're going to see is people challenge or limit transfer rules.
Okay.
Because what we have now, kind of like the case with the athlete from Washington that transferred to Georgia, that now transferred somewhere else, you see players jumping each season from team to team to
It's
team.
so easy, and then there's so many loopholes, and I know that's kind of what you're talking about, where they can say, well, I'm just going to be an academic for a semester and then get back into another school as an athlete.
But, what the NCAA did, and I think, and we've talked about this, Nico Amaleva was the catalyst. There used to be 2 windows, 2 transfer portals. And when Nico jumped ship at the end of spring practice, allegedly demanding more money from UT, shortly thereafter, the NCAA slammed that door shut. And so now we have only one transfer portal. But now the rumblings are people want to somehow limit a college athlete's ability to transfer schools, whether it be a one-time only transfer or a transfer every 2 years.
Interesting.
But if you think about it, I mean, these players, even if they sign relatively, and I'm being a little facetious, meager NIL, or now you just are paid for play under the house settlement, and you get a couple million here, then go to another school and get a couple million there. I mean, you've turned what was to be a academic career as a collegiate athlete into netting $2, $3, $4, $6, $8 million.
I mean, some people call it a mini pro, but it's not even mini pro. I mean, you're getting paid the big bucks.
And that's going to be, part of the frustration, because if Joey would have prevailed, he would have been 25 years old.
Yeah.
Now, you're a 5-star, and we've had this question before on our program. Should my son go to a big Power 5 school, knowing that a JUCO player could come in who racked up some big numbers and take his place? And so he sets the bench in perpetuity.
Right.
But you have an 18-year-old competing against a 25-year-old man. So it's really, the NCAA is going to have to get their arms around how we do this.
Hey, we have a question here from Hannah. Do you think there's a possibility of college football looking more like European soccer, with junior colleges feeding into bigger schools so younger players can get more play time?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah, it is.
And, one thing I've heard people in the know talk about, wouldn't it be a great idea, instead of, having these people come from all these JUCO places all around, for example, if you're Tennessee and you're recruiting 2 or 3 preeminent quarterbacks, why not send one to ETSU for a while, Tennessee Tech for a while, Austin Peay for a while, and have our own farm league? Now, there's a lot of logistics.
But would these players want to do that, or are they seeing dollar signs and big time out of the gate?
Well, I think you'd have to adjust the compensation accordingly if you had this, quote, feeder system. But that's a great question, where there has to be a mechanism. I mean, because if you think about it, you're the parent or you're the college athlete, and you're a 5-star. So we know you've got the talent, but you're on the bench because a guy put up big numbers in a JUCO team, and you're sitting there year after year. Now, you're getting paid.
But you're not playing.
But you're not playing, so
there's frustration.
Your earnings, it is frustrating. Although I've heard through the grapevine that a lot of these players that are making big bucks to ride the pines aren't really complaining as much as one would think.
The upside is they're not getting hurt. So that could add to their, and that leads to this question: what about multi-year eligibility caps? Well, they could ride the pine forever, but then all of a sudden they've gotten in 5-6 years, they're done.
Well, that's another thing I think you're going to see. These players that are playing 5, 6, 7 years, I think that's going to be a problem. The other thing that I think you're going to see, and I think Congress may be involved, is some form of collective bargaining. Because let me tell you how it really works. So let's say you're the university. Now you've got a cap. You've got $20 million to pay for your team. Now, there's a parallel train, the NIL money. Players can still make money, but they've kind of tightened that up.
Right.
So you'd have to tie your NIL money for your name, image, likeness to actual signing autographs, making appearance on behalf of a company.
Media deals.
And it's got to be approved by a select committee of the NCAA. And you know how many people work in that office that approves all the national deals for NIL compensation?
How many?
3.
Really?
As of 2 weeks ago.
Oh, my goodness.
I did hear someone say it might be as much as 7.
Did you know this?
But anyhow, so we've got that. But the other thing is, here's how the money's divided. You got $20 million. Well, if you notice, the quarterbacks at Tennessee were in the game and on the hunt for wanted to make $5-6 million plus. So then, typically, you want to make sure that you pay for your left tackle to protect your biggest asset, your quarterback.
Right.
Then you need a defensive end. That's probably number 3. Then you need a corner, number 4.
There goes your money.
Well, and then you've got the other guys on the line, the offensive linemen, and these other guys going, what about me?
Right.
You're driving to practice in a Lambo. I'm sitting here
My
in
agent
a Prius.
is saying, hey.
Yeah. So there's a lot of disparity with the money. And, I mean, I heard somebody very close to the athletic department say, hey, you don't want to be the Bengals where you give all your money to the quarterback and you can't afford a supporting cast.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
I think you're going to see some form of collective bargaining like baseball has. And, baseball has not had a lot of problems because it's, there's a Sherman antitrust issue. Other thing I think you're going to see in Tennessee's going to be at the forefront of this, and I think Aguilar is a little microcosm. State NIL conflicts.
I was about to ask you about that. Explain.
Well, Tennessee was, as we've been all along with NIL, when we first fired a shot over the bow at the NCAA with Nico, and were successful in that lawsuit. The legislature issued a law, a statute, enacted one that basically says that we can disregard NCAA rules and regulations if we feel they are illegal or anti-competitive. We can choose not to do what a conference tells us to do. We are not bound by caps that the NCAA mandates. So,
and this led to many discussions about why even have the NCAA and why not just disband it.
Why not just let it run a basketball tournament every March,
Well,
which there's a lot of talk about. But the point is, if you have every state with a different NIL statute, how in the world do you enforce cogently a series of rules that apply? So that's why I think this is trending toward federal litigation. That's
Interesting.
going to bring all this together, because
Something has to happen. More rules and regulations, don't you think?
I think so, but I think team transfer after transfer after transfer. I think players playing for 7 years. I mean, you know, the fans are kind of shaking their head as they're writing their checks for their season tickets.
Especially the fans who just want to see college football in its purest form. That's kind of gone by the wayside.
And if you ever want to make your blood pressure go up, read the preamble to the NCAA, their mandate, their spirit, their mission, and it talks about fostering college athletics and academics and fundamental fairness. And then, you turn on the TV and you see people flying all over the country and getting kidnapped by Lane Kiffin in airports and wanting $6 or $7 million.
He said that, I didn't.
I said it.
You did.
After the quarterback left Knoxville,
Right,
as he was leaving Knoxville.
Right. Hey, we have about 1:20 left, so if you have a question, now's the time to get it in. Hannah, thank you again for sending in that awesome question. We love to hear your comments and questions as well. So bottom line, as I said earlier before we went to break, UT is without a quarterback.
Well, we've still got quarterbacks.
Well, we have quarterbacks, but we're without a Joey Aguilar. So who's going to take the place?
I don't know. There are people that make a lot of money to make those decisions, so we'll see. But whoever does, we wish them the best.
You're a super fan.
I'm a super fan.
You're not going to say who you would like to see in there.
I'm for Tennessee's quarterback.
Okay. That'll
and,
do it.
The good thing is, it's kind of like Black Friday. Shopping season is over. so we have our quarterbacks.
That's
here.
true. We have our group. We just don't know who the emerging star is just yet. All right. Thanks, everybody, so much for being with us. Let's talk more at 5:30, shall we?
Let's do.
All right. Have a good one.